Hello friends, and welcome to today's video, which is going to be the latest installment of my History ofs. Now, for those who are new here, my History ofs are basically where I take a K-pop group for some arbitrary reason, and then I dive into their entire history and I learn things, because we love to learn in this house. But I would say for today's video, we're doing probably the most prolific, if not the most prolific. The only artist I feel like could compete is SHINee. And even then, like, 21 and SHINee are prolific in very different ways. But we're doing definitely the most prolific girl group I've ever done, which is 21. Now, before we continue, I do have a few things I want to give you some warnings on. First warning is a standard one for these videos. I'm not doing every single group activity, nor am I doing every single solo activity. That's just not really a good use of my time or your time. Like, this video, to be fair, wouldn't actually be that much longer. I didn't skip all that much, especially in comparison to other groups. Like, when I did my History of SHINee, I skipped so much because that video would have been 18 hours long. But for this one, I skipped some stuff, but for the most part it's here, but I'm not doing everything. I don't want to hear a comment that's like, you skipped this variety show appearance or this other appearance. Like, I'm not doing everything. Warning number 2. I don't own any 21 merchandise, like no albums, no posters, no nothing, which is a first for this video. I always like to do groups that I have albums for just so I can display them over here. Instead, you're going to be seeing my coffee cup a lot, and I don't want to hear it either. If you're mad that I don't have anything to display, the average 21 album on the internet to buy is like 50 bucks. And I make no money off this channel, and that wasn't including shipping, so like, I'm not doing it. I'm not buying anything. I do have a bunch of shit that I printed out though. Like you can see, I have a bunch of stuff that I printed out. You only saw 2. But they're all here. They're all here. We're going to put them up on the wall. My landlord's going to hate me, but it's fine. We're going to put them up on the wall, so like, we have something to display. But I don't have any albums and I don't want to hear it. Number 3. I was a pretty big 21 fan back in the day, but I'm not anymore. But more importantly, I got into K-pop in 2015, meaning that my entire time as a K-pop stan has been in a post-21 world, essentially. Like, technically they hadn't disbanded yet, but they were not active as a group. Which means that while a lot of these videos, when I do them, I have a lot of just firsthand, or like, oh, I remember when this came out and this was the public reception. This is a lot more historically based. Like, I wasn't there when 2NE1 released essentially anything but Goodbye. And that means that I had to rely a lot more on the internet. I spent so much time on Twitter for this video just seeing what the girlies were saying. So it's a lot more historically based is the point. Number 4, as with all of these videos, once a member leaves the group, my rule is usually once you're gone, and you're gone from the video. The problem is 2NE1 disbanded. So my current plan is as follows. And by current plan, I mean the plan we're doing. Once 2017 rolls around, we're going to kind of fast forward. I'll give you a brief glimpse of what the members have been up to, but we're going to jump ahead to 2022, and that's how it's going to work. Number 5, my final disclaimer warning thing. On occasion, I will be giving opinions about things. Opinions about music, opinions about how it was received. These are all just opinions. They are open to disagreement. You can disagree with literally every single thing I say in this video, and that's totally fine. I love that for you. I love that for me. I love that for us. Also, because we must give credit where credit is due, my entire History of series has been inspired by Smokey Glow and her evolution of. She basically just takes YouTubers or makeup companies, dives into their history. I instead take that concept and do it with K-pop groups, but I will be linking her channel and her evolution of playlist in the description, so you can check those out if you want to, just because, again, we must give credit where credit is due. Also, while we're doing shout-outs, I want to give a very special shout-out to 2 people. Shout-out to the bestie, and shout-out to Bean, because they put up with so much from me. I was realizing when I was taking notes for this video and I was constantly texting the bestie and Bean, and I realized, I was like, you don't care. Like, I know you don't care. You know you don't care, but you put up with me. So I want to give a shout out to them for putting up with me whenever I make these really long videos and I spam them with information they truly could not be bothered to care about. Okay, now that we have all of that out of the way, we can actually get started, and as always, we must begin by meeting the members. Okay, welcome to the member section. Now, here's the deal. Like I just said a little bit ago, I do not own any 2NE1 merch, and I'm not buying any for this video. So, instead of a poster or anything else to do the members, you get internet printed pictures. Because I thought it would be fun, I decided what I'm going to do. It's 1 era per member, so since 2NE1 has 4 albums, I did 1 album per member going in age order because I thought it would be fun. Anyway, as always, we're going to go in age order also, just as we introduced them to pretend we're unbiased, which means first up we have Pak Bum, who was born on March 24th, 1984, and is 2NE1's main vocal. Bum did a couple things of note before debuting, primarily just featuring in other YG artists' songs, notably featuring in a handful of Big Bang songs. Let's have some Bum fun facts. She would audition 3 times before getting into YG Entertainment, and on the 3rd audition they finally took her. She also had the most fan cafe members of all the 2NE1 members, because I guess they had their own fan cafes. I did not realize this. I'm used to it being just 1 per group. But I guess they had individuals, and hers had the most. And also, she's been diagnosed with ADHD, which is relatable content because samesies. Also, while I'm not getting into it now, a lot of people blame Bum in particular for the death of 2NE1 in general, just because she had her whole drug scandal right before they stopped promoting. Now, I'm gonna get into it later. We're not gonna talk about it now, but I also knew that if I didn't talk about it now, someone would be mad. Our next member is Miss Sandara Park, aka Miss Dara, and she was born on November 13th, 1984, and can I just say, my printer had a stroke printing this out, specifically my mom's printer, but like, it had a stroke printing this picture out. I don't know why it was so hard for it to do it, but it struggled a lot. Anyway, during her time with 2NE1, Dada served as the group's vocal, sub-rapper, and visual. However, I have also seen discussions on Twitter that she was the unofficial lead dancer, so do with that information what you wish. Dada actually has some very prolific pre-debut lore, which is that she was wildly popular in the Philippines. She released an album there, starred in several movies, and once she got popular in 2NE1, those movies were actually re-released in Korea. As for Dada's fun facts, her brother is Thunder from M Black. She was scouted by YG after a documentary about her aired on KBS, and she apparently can speak 5 languages, which like, I always get impressed when idols speak more than like 2 languages, even just 2 languages. I barely speak 1 language, and my biggest regret in life is that I don't know another language. So I always get very impressed when people can speak something like 5. Also, for context, I have genius.com open pretty much at all times, but at various points in the video I had it up like when I was taking notes. And according to genius.com, Dada's role in 2NE1 is as the vocal / director of communications, which is hilarious to me because like, what does that even mean? On to the member who has maintained, I would argue, the most fame in a post-2NE1 world, the one and only Miss Lee Chae-rin, aka CL. Born on February 26, 1991, during her time in 2NE1, CL served as the group's leader, main rapper, lead dancer, lead vocal, and was the face of the group, which continues my theory that leaders have 50 billion roles. As for CL's fun facts, she was actually a JYP trainee before she joined YG, which she did in 2007. She modeled her rap style after Lil Kim, which I don't know how I never noticed that. Like, now that you say that to me, I totally see it. But before knowing that, I would have just been like, okay, sure. And also, she speaks several languages just like pretty much every other member of this group, including she speaks French, which I am a quarter French, so I really respect that. Last but not least, we have the only member to have left the group before their official disbandment, Miss Gong Minji, aka Minzy. Minzy was born on January 18th, 1994, making her a fellow Capricorn bestie, and while she was in 2NE1, she was the group's main dancer, lead vocal, lead rapper, and maknae. As for her fun facts, Minzy won several dancing competitions before joining YG. Her grandfather was also Gong Ok-jin, who was a famous traditional dancer in Korea, and her sister's also a dancer, which means dancing very clearly runs in the family. Anyway, now that we've met all the members, we can get back to the history of 2NE1. Welcome back. I hope you learned a lot, and if you didn't, I don't know, I guess you're smarter than me. Either way though, our story of 2NE1 begins in early 2009 when YG would announce that they were debuting their first girl group since Big Mama more than 5 years earlier, and arguably more importantly, their first group in general since Big Bang back in 2006. And this is notable because Big Bang had been just dominating the charts at this time. 2NE1 would release their first ever single on March 27th, 2009 with Lollipop, a collaboration with label mates Big Bang. And this song, because it was an ad for the LG Scion, it is actually not considered the official debut of 2NE1. That, however, did not actually stop the song from being an absolute monster of a hit. It spent 5 weeks at #1 on the Melon charts, the most for any 2NE1 single for their entire career. and closed out the year as the 10th most successful single of 2009. The song is also quite successful on YouTube. It currently has just under 100 million views, which I know by 2023 standards is essentially nothing. For 2009, that is a lot. Like, this is currently, to this day, the 5th most viewed music video from 2009. That said, I did in fact rewatch the music video for this video, and I'm sure these fits were giving in 2009, but by 2023 standards, they're some of the ugliest things I've ever seen. Also, I want to stress, I think this is really funny, in my notes, because I hadn't planned on printing everything out when I took these notes, in my notes I literally say that seeing Seungri's face in 2023 should be illegal, which is really funny, because I literally colored over his face here. I don't know if you can tell, but like, there is no Seungri in this picture, there's just a black scribble, and I just think that's really funny. Anyway, musically, this song is something for sure. It's a lot. Like, it's an experience to listen to. It's extremely 2009, and I'm just going to leave it at that and let you interpret that statement as you wish. Lollipop was swiftly followed by 2NE1's actual debut, Fire, which came out on May 6th and was met with just immediate, widespread success. Fire swiftly topped pretty much every chart there was to top, including a 4-week run at #1 on the Melon charts, and closed out the year as the 8th most successful single on the year-end Melon charts, as well as earning 2NE1 their first ever music show wins with 2 wins on Inkigayo. The song also continued 2NE1's trend of being absolute YouTube powerhouses at the time. It was accompanied by 2 music videos, a street version and a space version. I'm 90% sure this is the street version, but do not quote me on that. But both videos have over 50 million views today and combined to over 115 million. As for the song itself, it is an absolute icon and did for sure change the game for K-pop at the time. However, I can't deny, I don't think it aged the best. I don't think it's a bad song today by any means, but I do think it's very much stuck in its time in certain aspects. Also, part of me does want to say that the rapping could be better, but I also know how much CL in particular improves her rapping, so I feel like that's probably a factor in it too. Then, on July 8th, 2NE1 released their self-titled first mini-album, along with its lead single, I Don't Care, both of which can be seen here, and both of which were wildly successful. Starting with the album, since there's actually an album to talk about this time, this album was amazingly well. Like, it sold over 100,000 copies, which, again, I know by modern standards in 2023, selling 100,000 copies is nothing, even for a girl group now, but for 2009, for a girl group's album to be selling 100,000 copies was essentially unheard of. Like, the only girl group pulling numbers like that was more or less just Girls' Generation. As for the lead single, I Don't Care was nothing short of an absolute monster of a hit. It spent 4 weeks at #1, just like Fire on the Melon charts, and closed out the year as the #2 song of 2009, sitting just behind G. I Don't Care also allowed 2NE1 to become the first ever group to win a Daesang the same year they debuted, when they won Song of the Year at the Mamas, notoriously beating G because Mnet is a little bitch. It was also a monster on music shows, picking up a grand total of 12 wins, making it, for the rest of their careers, the most awarded 2NE1 song on music shows. Musically, however, I Don't Care was a pretty stark shift from Fire. Fire was a lot more hip-hop based. I Don't Care is a lot more R&B focused, and personally, I think it aged a lot better and is still a bit of a moment to this day. Quick note, on August 18th, G-Dragon would release his solo debut album, Heartbreaker, which is relevant because it featured 2 songs with 2NE1 members. The first one, Hello, which featured Dada, peaked at #10 on the Melon charts, making Dada the first 2NE1 member to have a solo top 10 entry. The second is The Leaders, which featured CL and Teddy, and this song notably, I'm pretty sure, saw the debut of CL referring to herself as the baddest female, a moniker she would go on to use not just through the rest of 2NE1's career, but to this very day. Following promotions for I Don't Care, 2NE1 would split up to do some solo/unit releases, the first of which would be from Dada, when on September 7th, she released her song Kiss, which featured fellow 2NE1 member CL. The song was a moderate success, at least compared to the 2NE1 group-wide releases. It did peak at #3 on the Melon charts, however, it failed to get any music show wins. The song itself is also nothing special. I don't dislike it by any means, but I feel like for your first solo release from any 2NE1 member, I kind of wish it was a bit stronger, if you know what I mean. Also, for what it's worth, the music video for this song absolute disaster. The plot makes no sense. Like, it starts off being a very blatant ad, and then I'm 90% sure all the kissing is fake, and then I'm pretty sure just all a bet. I don't know. I need someone with better media literacy than me to analyze this music video and give me a breakdown of everything that's happening, because from my point of view, it's a disaster. Anyway, the following month we would get our second and also the most successful of the 2NE1 solos, which was Bomb's You and I. This song swiftly topped chart, spending 2 weeks at #1 on the weekly Melon charts and topping the entire month and November chart. It also won Best Digital Single at the 2010 Mamas, but that award has never been given before or since 2010. It is a 2010 exclusive award and has only gone to this song, so I don't actually know what that means. Musically, I would personally say of the late 2009 solo singles, this is probably the weakest, but the general public loved it, and I guess that's all that matters. The final of the late 2009 solo singles was actually a duo single. It was CL and Minzy's Please Don't Go, which was released on November 20th, and managed to peak as high as #2 on the weekly Melon charts. However, it was blocked from the top spot by 2 p.m. That said, Please Don't Go is actually my favorite of the late 2009 singles, not because I think it's like this god-tier song, or even the best 2NE1 release, or even remotely the best 2NE1 release. However, I have such nostalgia for this song. I remember the first time I heard it falling absolutely head over heels in love with this song. I don't know what it was in particular that intrigued me, but there's just something about it that I still love to this day. Closing out the year, 2NE1 swept the Best New Artist awards. Like, if there was a Best New Artist award for them to win, they won it. In the sense that, do you remember when, like, Wanna One debuted? And everyone knew Wanna One was gonna win all the rookie awards. This was that. This had that type of vibe. Like, they won everywhere. They also did extremely well at the Mamas, because this was during the era of the SM Mnet feud, which meant that 2NE1 managed to walk home with Song of the Year for I Don't Care, Best New Female Artist, and Best Music Video for Fire. But with that, we have finished 2009, which means it is officially time for our very first retrospective. Okay, hi, welcome to the retrospective corner. I know this is the Shine and Shell corner. We've been over this in my last video. My retrospective corner is over there. My air conditioner is in front of it. I'm not moving everything around. I do enough moving of things in my apartment. You don't even know. The bestie can attest to this. When I film these videos, my apartment becomes a war zone. But, like, I move enough shit around. I'm not moving more stuff, so this is the corner you're getting. Anyway, for those who are new here, whenever I do these types of videos, I like to end every year with just a little retrospective. Just, you know, touch base on things, talk about the major events, that type of vibe. And 2009 was a massive year for 2NE1. For context, okay? They spent 13 weeks at #1 on the Melon charts in 2009, not including the 2-week one Bomb had, okay? Here's a list of every single artist since 2009 who spent 13 weeks at #1 in a single calendar year. Thus concludes the list. Like, before you comment it, New Jeans is at 12 weeks in 2023. Don't tell me this. New Jeans is at 12. So, like, for context, they have done something no group has managed to accomplish since, which in and of itself is extremely impressive. Like, the level of success 2NE1 saw so immediately is something that's really only been rivaled in recent times by, like, IVE and New Jeans. Probably IVE a little bit more just because they have more songs to their name and they've all been hits. But even so, New Jeans and IVE are the closest we've gotten, and neither of them have really managed to, I think, capture the extreme levels of success 2NE1 had with their debut. On top of that, 2NE1 immediately established themselves as just an absolute powerhouse, not just in terms of a popularity sense, but a cultural sense as well, and it immediately put them in square competition with another girl group we're gonna get to later. But all you need to know right now is that 2NE1 had a monster debut year and were wildly successful. Kicking off 2010, 2NE1 would release another ad song, this time entitled either Try to Follow Me or Follow Me, depending on what you want to call it. I've seen it go both ways, but it was an ad for Samsung. The song was released on February 9th and very quickly earned 2NE1 their first ever #1 song on the newly established Gaon charts. However, as an ad song, it was not eligible to win on Music Show Win, so it took home a grand total of 0. Musically, though, this song is probably the worst aged 2NE1 release. Like, of all of their catalog, I would say this one aged the worst, because it's extremely 2010. It's very auto-tuney, it's very repetitive. I'm sure at the time it hit, but from a modern perspective, 13 years later, it just doesn't hold up that much. That said, the music video for this song, absolute icon. It's so fun and goofy, and it makes sense. Like, this music video was only released because the song itself did so well, and it's just such a moment. Like, if you want to experience just a really fun, goofy 2NE1 music video, go watch it. I'd highly recommend it. 2NE1 would actually go on a bit of a hiatus as they prepared for their next album. The only real thing they did of note for the next several months was start working with will.i.am of the Black Eyed Peas, and in spite of the fact that I've been aware of this information for a full third of my life at this point, it still feels a lot like a fever dream. Jumping ahead, on September 9th, 2NE1 would release the Icon that is their first studio album to anyone. Now, this album had several lead singles. It technically has 4. I'm not talking about all 4. We're going to talk about the 2 you see right over here, Can't Nobody and Go Away, because they are the 2 most successful singles off the album. Starting with Go Away, it did exceedingly well. It spent 2 weeks atop the Gaon charts and 2 weeks atop the Melon charts. Closing out the year is the number 10 song on the 2010 Melon year-end charts and number 4 on the year-end Gaon charts. The song also, very importantly to me, includes the line, Beyonce, I'm walking out of destiny, which has such cunt energy, and I love it. As for the music video, it's a bit of a trash fire. Like, it is a full 6 minutes long and includes some of the absolute worst editing I've ever seen from a K-pop music video released in the past, like, I don't know, in the 2010s. Because for something that presumably had such a high budget, it's very choppily edited, and also at several points, pretty much the majority of the song, the lip syncing is notably off from what the song is saying, which I don't understand how you did that, because I assume they were lip syncing to the correct words, and you just synced it up wrong, and I'm just confused. Also, to cap it all off, it ends with a bitch dying in a ball of fire. Like, it's such a mess, I simultaneously love and hate it. Musically, though, it's fine. It's never been my favorite song on this album, even amongst the lead singles, but it's nowhere near the worst thing 2NE1 has released, and nowhere near the worst song on this album either. As for the song I did love, the icon herself, Miss Can't Nobody. Now, I want to stress before we continue, I am aware that pretty much every single complaint I made about Try to Follow Me is relevant to this song. This song is very auto-tuney, it's very repetitive, and not necessarily in a fun way, but somehow here it works. I can't explain it, it just works. The song was also a huge hit for 2NE1. It topped the weekly Melon charts the week before Go Away did, making 2NE1 the first ever girl group to replace themselves at number 1 on the weekly Melon charts. And if you were wondering, since then, only one other girl group has done that, which is IVE, who did it like 2 months ago. Also, just given the charting success that this album had with all its singles, it allowed 2NE1 to become the first ever artist to occupy the top 3 spots of the weekly Melon chart, which is a feat I feel like people do not talk about enough. Okay, now that we've done the main singles, let's talk about the album itself, 2NE1. And this album was a massive success. Pre-sales for this album very quickly cleared 100,000 copies, which I know, again, like, Stray Kids just had, what, 5 million pre-sales? However, for 2010, and especially for a girl group in 2010, 100,000 pre-sales was a very big number. It would also earn 2NE1 their first number 1 album on the Gaon charts, debuting at number 1 and closing out the year as the 7th highest selling album of 2010. Also, the B-sides off of this album did very well as well, I want to point that out. The total downloads for this album by the end of 2010 sat at around 15 million, which makes this one of the most downloaded K-pop albums of all time. 2NE1 didn't do a ton of note following promotions for 2NE1. However, before I actually wrap up the year, I want to just go over very quickly their wins at the main music show awards, specifically the Melon Music Awards and the Mamas. First, at the Mamas, they went in as the most nominated artist with a total of 6 nominations, and walked out as the most awarded artist with 4 wins, including wins for Album and Artist of the Year. Meanwhile, at the Melon Music Awards, they would pick up another win for Album of the Year with 2NE1. However, for the majority of their nominations, they did end up getting beaten out by Girls' Generation. But that's all I got for 2010, so let's go back to the retrospectives corner. Okay. So I have a complicated relationship with 2NE1 promotions in 2010 because I have a complicated relationship with YG promotional schedules in the sense that YG does this thing where their artists are either doing everything or they're doing nothing. And they don't seem to understand that in-between type of experience. And it bothers me a lot because In comparison to 2009, 21 might as well have been on hiatus in 2010 for the entire year. By comparison, right? Like, yes, they released a singular physical album in each year, but if you think about it, we had 3 member/unit singles on top of 2 actual official releases and an ad song, okay? In 2010, we had 1 album that had like 5 singles, and we had 1 digital single at the beginning of the year, and that's it. Like, the difference is so stark. That said, they did have a phenomenal year in 2010. They went home with 3 major diss song wins. They had multiple #1 songs. They were doing amazingly well, so I can't really complain all that much. Okay, 21 started off 2011 by releasing an English version of Can't Nobody in Japan, which came out on January 19th, before making their official Japanese debut with Go Away on March 9th. And before you ask, I forgot to print out Japanese covers. Like, I could put back up Can't Nobody and Go Away, but I took them down, and I don't want to put the tape on the back, so Japanese releases don't have anything. They subsequently released a Japanese version of their first mini-album on March 16th. However, promotions for this comeback and release were actually completely cancelled following the 2011 Japanese earthquake. It was probably for the best, though not the earthquake itself, but just promotions being cancelled, because this album didn't make a ton of noise. It sold around 4,000 copies in the first week, which for your first real Japanese album isn't ideal. Since 21 couldn't promote in Japan, they went back to Korea, and on April 21st, Bum would release her second solo single, Don't Cry, which was a huge hit and served as the first pre-release for the then upcoming second mini-album by 21. Just like her first single, Don't Cry would top the charts pretty much everywhere. It spent 3 weeks at #1 on the Melon charts and 2 weeks at #1 on the Gaon charts, closing out the year as the #5 song on the year-end Gaon charts. However, just like with her first release, it did not get any music show wins in spite of having extremely strong charting power. As for the song itself, it's actually pretty good. I prefer it over her first solo release just because I think the background music for this one is a bit better, but it's also a bit of a bop. I will concede the music video is still nuts, but this time it's in your like 2011 K-pop way, so it's all good. 3 weeks later, on May 12th, 21 would release their first full group single of 2011, as well as the second pre-release for their upcoming mini-album, Lonely, which was an unsurprising hit. It would replace Don't Cry at #1 on the Melon charts, where it spent 2 weeks at #1, as well as a week at #1 on the Gaon charts, where it closed out the year as the #4 song. The music video also did quite well. It's currently sitting at just under 100 million views, making it the 4th most viewed 21 music video, and also, the outfits they apparently wore in this video cost around $200,000. I'm not sure why this is relevant, but it kept coming up when I was taking notes, so I felt the need to share it. Musically, Lonely is absolutely gorgeous and really shows off the very strong vocals that all the members of 21 have. And also, I'm not going to say it's where my love of guitar comes from, but I do remember being absolutely obsessed with the guitar in the song at a very formative age in my life. AKA, this song was my anthem of 2015, and I still love it to this day. Lonely was swiftly followed by another single, which came out on June 24th, which is also, I would say, the most recognizable and probably the most famous 21 song, as well as just one of the most well-known K-pop songs of this era of music. And I am, of course, discussing the one and only I Am the Best. Now, to call this song anything less than a massive hit would just be a lie. It topped almost every chart there is to top, including spending a week at #1 on the Melon charts, a week at #1 on the Gaon charts, and closing out the year at #3 on the year-end Melon charts. On top of that, this song was an absolute moment on YouTube. It is, by a wide margin, the most successful 21 music video. For context, okay? The second most viewed 21 music video has around 108 million views. I Am the Best has 343 million, including 3.3 million likes, making it the most viewed music video by a K-pop artist of 2011, beating out songs like Mr. Simple by Super Junior and The Boys by Girls' Generation. This song would also very famously be used in a Microsoft Surface ad in 2014, which saw it get a bit of a resurgence in popularity, and also made it one of the earliest K-pop songs to get radio play in the United States. Also, true story, back when this ad came out, I was in high school, because I was in high school in 2014, because I'm ancient, but that's not the point. The point is, I was in high school, and this one guy in high school, who I may or may not have had a crush on, was obsessed with the ad this song was in. Like, specifically the song itself, he was just obsessed, and I remember him showing all of us this ad at lunch one day, being like, look at this ad, listen to this song, isn't it so cool? And because it was 2014, I did not know this was a 2NE1 song because I didn't know who 2NE1 was. But then fast forward to 2015 when I learned that was the 2NE1 song and I learned who 2NE1 was, and I lost it. I thought it was so amusing to me. And like every once in a while, because the bestie was also in high school with me, so every once in a while I'll text her and be like, remember when insert name was obsessed with the Microsoft ad that had I'm the best in it? Like, it still makes me laugh. Now, in spite of being an absolutely massive hit, I actually don't really like this song all that much. I think of 2NE1's catalog, it has not been the best aged song to say the least. Like, I'm sure it was great in 2011, and in 2015 I loved it, but in 2023 it just doesn't hold up as much. Like, I'll still enjoy it when I listen to it, but I don't enjoy it because it's good, I enjoy it because it's iconic and messy. Anyway, brief note, following the release of I Am The Best, Balm would feature in the Infinity Challenge song Having an Affair by G-Dragon and Park Myung-soo, and this is notable because the song was an absolute monster of a hit. Like, it topped every chart and is, to this day, according to the Gaon charts, the most downloaded K-pop song in a single week. Back to 2NE1 though, they would release their final pre-release for their second mini-album on July 21st with the release of Hate You. This song notably has probably the wildest music video in 2NE1's entire catalog. Like, conceptually speaking, most 2NE1 music videos are, at the end of the day, just the members looking good in expensive outfits with a man usually being involved in some form. This music video is a fully animated music video, and notably has the animated members of 2NE1 murdering a demon creature pretending to be a human. It's a lot. Music video aside, this song is a moderate hit. It peaked at number 3 on the Gaon charts, which is quite good, but for a group like 2NE1, they've had a string of number 1, so a number 3 isn't quite as good as they could do. However, I feel like a lot of that is because it came out a week before the rest of their second mini album, and I think if they'd spaced out the release dates a bit more, it probably would have done better. Speaking of the album, on July 27th, 2NE1 would officially release their second mini album, and just like their first mini album, it was simply titled 2NE1, which has led a lot of people to refer to it as either 2NE1 the second mini album, or as Noza, which is the name of the Japanese release of the album and also the tour they went on in support of said album. But before we talk about the tour, we have to talk about the album itself. It was extremely successful. It immediately topped the Gaon album charts, and in spite of the fact that it was released so late in the month, still managed to be the highest selling album of July 2011. The album was led with the single Ugly, which became the 4th song off of this album to top the charts. It spent 2 weeks in number 1 on the Melon charts, a week at number 1 on the Gaon charts, and wrapped up the year as the number 7 song on the year-end Melon charts. Musically, it's also an absolute banger. If you do not scream your heart out to this chorus, or should I say have never screamed your heart out to this chorus, you don't understand me, because this chorus slaps. Following promotions for their mini-album, 2NE1 would kick off their first official tour. Entitled Noza, like I said, it would start in Seoul on August 26th and would then be followed by a Japanese leg that ran through September and into October. In promotion of their Japanese leg, 2NE1 would re-release their second mini-album in Japan on September 21st, and this did far better than their prior Japanese album, selling around 50,000 copies in the first week and topping the Japanese charts. 2NE1 would go on a bit of a hiatus following the end of their tour, which is fair. They were busy this year, but it also means that I have nothing really to talk about for the rest of 2011, so with that it is retrospective time. Okay, so 2NE1 in 2011 was nothing short of a supercharged powerhouse, and I feel like the best way to symbolize this is to look at the year-end charts. Now, there are 2 main charts that I've been using in this video. That's the Gaon charts and the Melon charts, each of which have their own year-end chart. On the year-end Melon chart, there were 2 2NE1 songs in top 10, and on the year-end Gaon chart, there were 3. Now, these numbers do not include Balm's feature on the Infinity Challenge song, which is at number 2 on both charts, nor does it include Don't Cry, which was number 5 on the year-end Gaon charts. Additionally, the singles they released in 2011, whether as a group or just Balm's solo song Don't Cry, racked up more than 15 million downloads, making their second mini-album another one of the most downloaded K-pop albums of all time, and they spent a grand total of 5 weeks at number 1 on the Gaon charts and 8 weeks at number 1 on the Melon charts, not including Balm's Infinity Challenge feature once again. They also did amazingly well at the year-end award shows. They walked into the Melon Music Awards with 5 nominations and walked out with 2 wins, including their second consecutive Album of the Year win. And meanwhile, at the Mamas, they won Song of the Year with I Am the Best. So to say they were doing well would be an understatement. The one major shift that was a negative thing for 2NE1 was they started really dropping off on music shows. Part of this is just because 2NE1 has always really been focused on digital singles. They only have 4 physical albums in Korea, whereas they have like 10 to 15 singles. So a part of that is just the fact that there were no album sales to support these songs, but all of their music show wins from this point forward were a severe decline from what we'd seen in 2009 and in 2010. In terms of their promotions though, 2011 continued the trend for YG of giving 2NE1 either everything or nothing, and 2011 was very clearly an everything year. Well, spoilers, 2012 is a nothing year, but they really do alternate, and that's something to keep in mind going forward. That is all I have for this retrospective. However, there's something else I want to discuss, so we're going to go do that now. Hello, and welcome to the Controversy Corner. I know you can't actually tell, but like, I am in a corner, but either way, we're here to discuss something that I've been alluding to a little bit throughout this video, but I never really dove into until now, which is the constant comparison between 2NE1 and Girls' Generation, and also the undying rivalry that existed between Sones and Blackjacks. I feel like the best and most obvious comparison that I, at the very least, can make is either BTS vs EXO in 2015-2016 era, or Twice vs Blackpink in 2017-2018. Like, these groups were compared to each other in pretty much every way, and the fans hated each other. Like, the Twitter feuds I found doing this video were nuts. Obviously, they fought over which group was the bigger group, like, we all know that, and my 2 cents, I feel like all of you are wrong, because you all fight over it like it's an all or nothing game, and both groups were extremely popular just in different ways. Sones will tell you Girls' Generation had way stronger album sales, which is true. Girls' Generation did have stronger album sales, but 2NE1 was consistently releasing one of the highest selling girl group albums every year. They put out an album between 2009 and 2011. Like, Girls' Generation, it wasn't like Girls' Generation was selling 10 million albums and 2NE1 was selling 20,000. Meanwhile, Blackjacks will tell you, oh, 2NE1, they had way better digitals. Girls' Generation could never. And it's like, yeah, 2NE1 had stronger digitals, but it's not like Girls' Generation wasn't charting hit after hit. Like, at the end of the day, both groups have the same number of #1 songs on the Gaon charts. 2NE1 has 1 more week at #1. And on the Melon charts, 2NE1 has 10 #1 songs, which is very impressive, don't get me wrong. Girls' Generation has 7. Like, it's not like we're talking about these massively different numbers. Basically, both artists were massive, and these comparisons are fucking stupid. And before you tell me I'm wasting my breath, literally in 2023, I've seen this fight go down on Twitter. I'm not even joking. Like, this year, more than a decade after both girl groups were in their prime, and more than 5 years since the last one released any music whatsoever. Like, we have reached an era where we should not care who was the bigger group 10 years ago. Like, we've moved on as a society, but some people haven't. So I'm taking this time to say this, essentially. The comparisons are going to be there. You're always going to have a group that's being compared to another group. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it gets really fucked up when you go too far. Like, literally, from what I saw on Twitter in 2011, people were calling both 2NE1 and Girls' Generation the worst things in the world. Like, they were calling them ugly, saying they couldn't sing, saying they couldn't dance, people were saying, oh, Girls' Generation, they're not real musicians because they don't write their own songs. Joke's on you, neither does 2NE1. Meanwhile, people were being like, oh, 2NE1, they're fake, like, they're all for a show. Like, yeah, so is Girls' Generation. They're in the idol industry. My thing is just, I don't think there's anything wrong if you take what is essentially the top 2 girl groups and compare their successes. I think that's very normal. I think that people have a tendency to take it way too far with that, and that will not be tolerated on this video. Like, literally, I saw people saying that ugly was just a clapback at all the Sones calling them ugly. And that brings me to my main PSA point. In the comments of this video, we will not be having that conversation. We will not be having the discussion of who is bigger between Girls' Generation and 2NE1. We're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. If you try and have that conversation, I will immediately be shutting it down. I will not be having that level of negativity on this channel. If you want to have a civil discussion, that's fine. But I've seen some shit on Twitter, and if it gets too dangerous, I will delete your comment and I won't feel bad about it. Anyway, PSA is over. We can go back to the video now. So, just like 2011, 2012 would start off with some Japanese promotions for 2NE1. They would release their first compilation album in Japan entitled Collection, as well as their first original song in Japan entitled Scream. Both the album and single were released on March 28th, with Scream selling around 7,000 copies and Collection selling around 35,000 copies in the first week. The next several months were essentially Japanese focused. And while Japanese expansion is all well and good, I think it is very important for K-pop groups to have global popularity. I also don't care, so we're gonna skip it. Jumping ahead, on July 5th, 2NE1 would release their one and only Korean single of all of 2012, I Love You. Now, this song, I actually think it's pretty good. It is a little disjointed, I will admit that. However, if you can get past that, I think it's a pretty enjoyable listening experience. The song would perform very, very well, topping all the charts essentially and closing out the year at number 6 on the year-end Melon charts. However, it would fail to get 2NE1 a single music show win, making it the first 2NE1 single that could win on a music show that didn't. Following promotions for I Love You, 2NE1 would kick off their second official tour, the New Evolution Global Tour, which, true to its name, saw them performing in the United States for the first time with shows in LA and New York, as well as several shows in Japan and just all throughout Asia. The Japanese leg in particular was extremely successful. It sold around 120,000 tickets, and the tour as a whole sold around 175,000. Additionally, in promotion of the Japanese leg, 2NE1 would release I Love You as their third Japanese single, which sold around 15,000 copies and peaked at number 5 on the Japanese charts. However, that's it for 2012. They didn't do a ton following their tour, so it's time for our next retrospective. Okay, I want to stress that before I make my next statement, I'm saying this in the nicest way possible, but I feel like 2012 was sort of the start of the end for 2NE1. Yes, they were wildly successful in 2012. They released one of the top 10 songs of the entire year. However, in comparison to what we'd seen in terms of their successes in past years, it just didn't really hit the same way. Part of that is undeniably due to the fact that this was the first year we didn't have a 2NE1 album in Korea. They released 0 physical releases this year. They only had the 1 digital single. However, this is also the first year they didn't win any diss songs at all. And in fact, between the Mamas and the Melon Music Awards, 2NE1 only got 1 win, which was a bonus song that they got at the Melon Music Awards alongside 9 other artists. Another factor is probably the huge spike in popularity Sistar saw in 2012 that put them as arguably the top girl group. However, I would argue the biggest factor to this decline is YG's terrible promotional cycle that still doesn't make sense to me to this very day. But that's all I got, so let's get back to the timeline. Okay, into 2013 we go, and 2NE1 would actually start the year by continuing their hiatus. They wouldn't do their first activity until March, when they collaborated with will.i.am for the single Take the World On, which was an ad for another computer, this time the Intel Ultrabook. This would be followed by another collab with will.i.am, this time entitled Getting Dumb, and featured Applediep alongside 2NE1, and would be included on will.i.am's #Willpower album and came out on April 23rd. However, that is not even the most fever-dreamy element of that album. Like, a 2NE1 single should be the strangest part of a will.i.am album, and yet it's not. Like, who remembers #That Power with Justin Bieber? I feel like that song can only exist in a very specific window of time. Like, if it had been a year earlier, it would have been a mess, and if it had been a year later, it would have been a mess, but it came out in, like, the perfect window. Also, I know it's not on the album, but we as a society have yet to address the absolute feral chaos that was the Scream and Shout remix, specifically the music video. Like, what was going on? I will concede, Lil Wayne's verse from that song lives in my head rent-free, and I've heard it like 5 times since taking these notes. But the song is like, what is going on? Why is Diddy here? That is a fair question, and we could ask that about a lot of society, but we're getting off track. Refocusing to 2NE1, more specifically CL, she would make her solo debut with the release of The Baddest Female on May 28th. This song would peak at number 4 on the Gaon charts and make CL the first 2NE1 member to win on a music show as a soloist with her Inkigayo win. Musically, I feel like this song is exactly what you'd expect it to be in pretty much every way. It is brash and abrasive, but also serving bad bitch realness. It's complicated. Jumping ahead a little bit, we would get our first group-wide 2NE1 comeback in over a year when on July 8th they released their latest digital single, Falling in Love. Now, I would argue this song is a moderate hit, all things considered, at least for 2NE1. It did top the Gaon charts, however, it peaked at number 2 on the weekly Melon charts, making it one of the very few 2NE1 singles to not top the charts that wasn't also being blocked by a different 2NE1 song. The song was also a complicated music show experience. It picked up a grand total of 3 wins, which is more than most 2NE1 singles have. However, 3 wins is also a bit floppish. Musically, meanwhile, this song is described as reggae. I would describe it as a mess. However, as always, 2015 Simon loved this song. 2023 Simon can enjoy it. However, he is aware that it didn't age the best in 2NE1's discography. Also, I didn't have a place to naturally mention this, but they name drop Johnny Depp in this song. The full line is just, "You're my Johnny Depp." However, 2023 Simon finds that an interesting decision. Falling in Love would swiftly be followed by another digital single, which was released on August 7th, entitled Do You Love Me, and is, of the years 2NE1 was active, probably their least successful single, excluding ads for various forms of technology. The song was the first 2NE1 single to top neither the Melon nor Gaon charts, excluding those blocked by other 2NE1 songs. It peaked at number 3 on the Gaon charts and number 7 on the Melon charts. It also is the least downloaded 2NE1 single. It has around 650,000 downloads, which isn't bad. However, there's B-sides on both of 2NE1's Souls that have more downloads than that. In terms of music show success, it was another disappointment. Do You Love Me would get exactly 1 win on M Countdown, and that is it, making it one of the least awarded 2NE1 songs. 2NE1 would go on a bit of a break following promotions for Do You Love Me, not returning until November, when they put out their 3rd single of the year on November 21st with the release of Missing You. This song was a return in a lot of ways, specifically to the levels of success they'd seen earlier. I would personally argue this is probably the most successful single they'd put out since 2011. The song debuted at number 1 on the Gaon charts and very quickly after topped the Melon charts as well, giving 2NE1 their 8th number 1 song on the Gaon charts and their 10th and final number 1 song on the Melon charts. It was also the most success they'd seen on music shows since 2010. Missing You picked up a grand total of 5 wins, making it to this day the 3rd most awarded song by 2NE1. Musically speaking, this song fucks hard. It's a pop ballad with an emphasis on the ballad part, and the vocals are gorgeous. I've said this earlier in the video, but I feel like with the type of music 2NE1 leans towards, their vocals don't always get to shine, but in this song, they're on full display and they are slaying. And speaking of slayful vocals, if you haven't seen it, the Winner cover of this song, a moment. Someone give Seungyoon his flowers, he deserves them. Closing out the year in December, Bum would join E-High in the duo Bum and High to release a cover of Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You. Yes, I forgot to print out a picture of this cover, don't worry about it, but this song, I didn't listen to it for this video. The vocals are slaying for obvious reasons, but I prefer Mariah's version. This song literally is a cover of a song that exists and a song that I like, so I prefer the original. But that's all I got for 2013, so let's head back to the retrospective corner. Now, I'm gonna say something and I just want you to stick with me, okay? In spite of the fact that 2NE1 released multiple number 1 songs on the Gaon charts and put out what was arguably their most successful song in nearly 2 years, I would argue 2013 was still a flop year for the group. Like, yes, their songs did well, but we're talking about 2NE1. That's like saying that a BTS song did well. These are groups that release some of the top songs of the year. Doing well is not their average experience. Since we've been using the Mamas and the Melon Music Awards as a sort of example of levels of success, I'm going to use those again, okay? Between both shows, 2NE1 got exactly 1 nomination, and they didn't win it. They got 0 wins at either show this year. And additionally, in terms of the Melon year-end charts, 2013 was the first year since their debut they didn't put out a song that peaked in the top 10 on the year-end charts. So they were very clearly seeing a decline from prior successes. That said, 2014 is undeniably an increase in popularity for the group, at least at the start. So let's go talk about that. We have officially reached the final full year of 21, which is obviously 2014, and they started the year off strong with the release of their second studio album, Crush, and its lead singles, Come Back Home and Gotta Be You, which all came out on February 27th. Let's start with the songs this time, and first we have the main title, Come Back Home, which, although failing to top the Melon charts, would spend 2 weeks at number 1 on the Gaon charts, giving 21 their 9th and final number 1 song, and allowing them to extend their record for most number 1 songs, not just by a girl group, a record they still hold, by the way, but also the record for most number 1 songs by a group overall. It did, however, bring back the trend of being a bit of a music show disappointment, only picking up a grand total of 3 wins, probably in part because it was released the same week as Mr. Mister by Girls' Generation. As for the song itself, it is a bit messy, but so are most 21 songs. I will say, though, that it does hold up for the most part. The one part I could have done without in my most recent listen, aka Yesterday, was the auto-tuning part after the chorus. That part I didn't love, but the rest of the song, bit iconic if you ask me. But that doesn't matter, because it's time to talk about Gotta Be You, which is, spoilers for if I ever decide to review this album, either my number 1 or number 2 21 title of all time. This song is absolute pop perfection. For context of how much I like it, there are 2 21 songs I have listened to consistently for the past 8 years. Those 2 songs are Lonely and Gotta Be You. So, like, if you were wondering what my top 2 21 songs were, it's those 2. And this song, it's an absolute moment. Like, it slaps in every way. It is on the off chance you haven't heard this song and you only listen to the main 21 titles, I would highly recommend listening to this one. Performance-wise, it also did quite well, peaking at number 2 on the Gaon charts, just behind Come Back Home, as well as, along with Come Back Home, setting a new record for longest charting song by 21 on the Gaon charts. Now for the album, it is unfortunate, but our final 21 album was also the least successful one they put out. It is the only post-2010s 21 album to not top the Gaon charts, as well as being their only Korean release to not clear 100,000 copies. The album did set one very impressive record, which was that it was the highest charting song on the Billboard 200 by a Korean artist at the time. It peaks at number 61, which I know in the modern day, like, we've had top 10s by K-pop artists. We've had several K-pop artists hit number 1 on the Billboard 200, but in 2014, for that time, this was an extremely impressive feat. Following promotions for Crush, 21 would kick off their 3rd and final tour entitled the All or Nothing World Tour, which, in spite of the name, was not actually a world tour. It was just an Asian tour. However, they might have had plans for a world tour that got scrapped. That said, the tour kicked off on March 1st in Seoul and would run on and off with shows throughout Asia before eventually wrapping up on October 17th. As a part of this tour, 21 would hold 4 shows in Japan, and in promotion of these dates, they would release a Japanese version of their latest Korean album, Crush. The album, released on June 25th, would peak at number 4 on the Japanese charts and sell around 35,000 copies. Not bad, but definitely a decline from prior 21 Japanese albums. However, that is not the most important thing that happened in June, because it is time to talk about Bum's drug scandal. I want to give you the heads up. We are not having a Hanbin level drug scandal. It's literally just her ADHD meds. I want to stress before I begin, though, I know nothing about Korean law. I literally am nowhere near an expert. I could not tell you. The only law that I know about Korea, beyond like the obvious, I assume murder is illegal, is I know they're weird with porn there. But other than that, I got nothing. So do not take anything I say in this video as a legal opinion. I am no legal expert. So, on June 30th, it was revealed that back in 2010, Bum had been investigated for smuggling Adderall into Korea. Now, in the modern day of 2023, we all know what Adderall is. We all know, presumably, several people who take it on a daily basis. However, this is back in 2014, and more important, and kind of 2010. The timeline is weird. I still don't get the timeline, but I know for Korean law in 2010, it was highly regulated to the extent that it was illegal to have it. The whole premise of this thing was that Bum, I guess, had a prescription in the US for Adderall, where it is legal to have, and because due to her promotional schedule, she couldn't go get it. This was also, for context, this was around the time of their To Anyone promotions, so she was busy, she couldn't go get it refilled herself, so she had a US doctor refill the prescription for her and mail it to Korea for her. Can I just say, for the record, as someone who's taken Adderall for literally a decade and a half, That's crazy to me. I've had to go to the pharmacy to get it every single time I need a refill. I'm genuinely jealous she had someone mail it to her. Anyway, there were a whole bunch of statements going around. The main premise of the scandal itself, aside from the actual drug smuggling, was whether or not she got special treatment for being a celebrity. Again, this was in October of 2010, pretty much the height of 2NE1's popularity. So there was a lot of debate about whether or not Bum was getting special treatment because she was never actually charged with anything, like nothing whatsoever. So that was the main premise of the scandal. And I'm going to talk more about the long-term ramifications later. What you need to know right now is that this brought a lot of problems in for 2NE1 and specifically Bum. Now, in spite of the scandal, 2NE1 did something that I actually find really funny. They kept touring with Bum. Like, I checked several dates. I found the clips on YouTube. Bum is there for these shows, which led to a very funny article I found where this person is basically being like, how dare Bum be at this concert? Like, how dare she? And I'm just sitting here reading it as an ADHD bitch being like, she's doing her job. Like, she probably had a contract to appear that she couldn't really nullify. Like, she's doing her job. Leave her alone. That said, following the end of their tour, Bum would actually go on official hiatus, and 2NE1 would perform as 3 at the year-end shows, which I find important because it meant they let Dada sing. Minor side rant time. I love Dada's voice. I really do. I think she has the prettiest voice in 2NE1, but they never give her any lines in the titles. Like, she will have substantially less lines than any of the other members. And I remember for Goodbye, but according to Twitter, people have always been complaining about this. They'll be like, hey, YG, hey, Teddy, who writes all of the 2NE1 songs, why doesn't she have any lines? And every time the response was the same. It was, oh, her voice doesn't really fit the style of the song, which, sure, there are songs like that. There are people who have specific voices that fit specific types of songs. I get that. Maybe you should make your song style one that fits the vocals of all the members. Like, I checked. I went to colorcodedlyrics.com and I looked. I picked the most popular titles from all of 2NE1's albums, okay? In Can't Nobody, very auto-tuned repetitive part. In Come Back Home, she only has the auto-tuned Come Baby Baby part. In Go Away, she has like 2 lines. I Don't Care and I Am the Best were slightly better in terms of line distribution, but she's still very auto-tuned, and it's like, can we let her sing? Okay, I'm done ranting. I also have nothing else to say about this year, so we're gonna move back to the retrospective corner. Okay, we have officially finished the final full year of 2NE1 promotions, and up until this drug scandal with Bum, they were actually doing extremely well. They had a very successful comeback, went on another tour. They were really on their way to reclaiming their 2011 era successes and their 2011 era popularity, until the drug scandal hit and that all came to a screeching halt. And while we're on the topic, I feel like we need to address something with the drug scandal, so we're going back to the controversy corner. That's right, besties. We're back in the controversy corner, and today's topic of discussion is going to be the fact that I feel like Bum gets all the hate for killing 2NE1 when we all really should be blaming YG. Like, yes, obviously, following Bum's drug scandal, the reputation and popularity of 2NE1 took a hit. That's a fact. But it wasn't an unrecoverable situation. Like, they could have kept going. However, YG's response to this scandal, beyond their boring statement, was literally to just quit. They just gave up promoting 2NE1 whatsoever. Literally, once they finished their already announced schedule, specifically their tour, that was it. 2NE1 didn't do anything. Like, they went to the year-end shows, sure, but that's about it. Like, for months, 2NE1 did nothing, when I'm not saying they should have immediately had a comeback by any means. I'm saying they shouldn't have gone years with nothingness. In conclusion, this is all YG's fault. Literally everything is YG's fault, at least when it relates to YG. Odds are someone's at fault. It is YG, and if you watched my History of Icon video, you'll already know that, but if you didn't watch it, it's all YG's fault. We hate YG in this house. Okay. So because 2NE1 has such little activity for the rest of their careers, my current plan is we're going to run through 2015 through 2017 in just one go, and then I'll give you one big retrospective at the end, because doing like individual year retrospectives for this rest of their career is just not really going to work out. I'll have 3 things to talk about for each year pretty much, so we're just going to do it in one big chunk. Cool? Cool. The first several items we have are actually Dada-related items. They're specifically Dada acting-related items because during 2NE1's music hiatus, she returned to acting. First, she would appear in the web drama Dr. Ian, which ran from March through April and was extremely popular, like one of the most viewed shows on Naver at the time level popular. After that, she starred in another web drama entitled We Broke Up, alongside winners Kang Soon-yoon, the icon himself, and this drama aired from late June to mid-July. Then, after a couple cameos in the show The Producers, she would star in her third web drama of the year entitled Missing Korea, which aired in November. That same month, CL would make her long-awaited return with a new single and technically US debut, which was Hello Bitches, which was released on November 21st, and in a lot of ways really showed the decline 2NE1 was seeing due to their lack of promotions. For context, CL's first solo single, The Baddest Female, peaked at number 4 on the charts and even got a music show win. By comparison, Hello Bitches peaked at number 21, spent around a month on the charts, and then dropped out of the top 100 completely. After that, we actually have a group-wide thing to discuss, which was the final performance pre-disbandment of all 4 members of 2NE1 when they appeared on stage with CL at the 2015 Mamas. This performance is widely considered not just one of 2NE1's best as a group, but also one of the most memorable performances from any K-pop award show. The video for this performance on YouTube has 48 million views. For context, that makes it the 8th most viewed stage from any Mama, and the most viewed stage from a girl group Mama performance to this day. This performance also notably saw the return of Bum to the public eye following her scandal and hiatus since she took part in the performance, and people were very excited. You can hear just the screaming in the crowd that as soon as each member showed up and they realized it wasn't just CL, they lost their minds. They only performed Fire and I Am the Best, and people ate it up. Like, people loved this shit, and I did rewatch the stage for this video, and I get it. 2NE1 really had this energy about them that was so unique, and I don't just mean in the music they make, because they didn't make the standard sound of K-pop at the time, but they had a stage presence that very few K-pop groups actually had, to the extent that watching that stage, I was genuinely upset I never got to see them live. Now, a rational human being would see the hype, the excitement, the joy that 2NE1 fans had for this performance, and think maybe it was time for a return. Maybe not an album, although an album would be ideal. Maybe it was time for a single. It was time for something. Unfortunately, YG has never been rational a day in their damn lives, and instead of anything whatsoever, we got more nothingness. Technically, though, what we got was actually a Donna acting cameo, another one. She appeared in the show One More Happy Ending, but unlike with The Producers where she appeared in a handful of episodes, she was only in one episode of this show. Following that, we got the official announcement that Minzy was leaving 2NE1. She was ending her contract with YG and leaving the group, the first member to do so, and as always with these videos, once you leave, you're kinda done, but given the way 2NE1 disbanded and the way I'm doing this video, we will come back to her, but for now, she's gone. Jumping ahead a little more, on August 19th, CL would release her latest single, this one entitled Lifted. Now, I will not deny, at the time of its release, I loved this song. Like, it was on my Apple Music 2016 replay. I listened to it so much. However, in the modern day, I find it a little bit boring and just kind of generic. It did, however, earn CL her first solo appearance on the Billboard Hot 100. She had appeared on the chart with Psy when she featured in his single Daddy. However, this was her first appearance on her own and made her the first K-pop female soloist to appear on the Billboard Hot 100. CL would follow the single up with the Hello Bitches World Tour, which ran from late October through mid-November and saw her performing at various cities in the US and Canada, including Seattle, but I did not go because I don't do GA shows. Then, following the end of CL's Hello Bitches tour on November 25th, 2016, YG officially announced 2NE1's disbandment. I actually remember exactly what I was doing at the moment. I was having dinner with my mom last night and I was telling her about this video. She also does not care, but she puts up with me. And I was like, do you remember when we went to London and we got stuck at the airport for like 8 hours because our flight was canceled and you kept trying to get us away home? That is where I was when this announcement was made. I was sitting at the airport in London, which meant I spent hours on Twitter and people were despondent. Like, people were losing their minds at this announcement. Some people had obviously picked up on the hints that 21 was kind of over. They hadn't released anything in years up until this point, and even as a solo career, like, the 21 members weren't really releasing music other than CL, who's putting out the occasional single. However, there was still a large number of people who had hope. Like, they were really hoping for a 21 comeback, for something, and they were so upset. And technically, those wishing for a comeback would get their wish, because on January 21st, 2017, 21 would release Goodbye as a disbandment single. It was made up of the 3 remaining members of 21, aka not Minzy. And I remember at the time being like, damn, that's fucked up. Like, they really should have let her be in the song, and I stand by that. I will die on this hill. Minzy should have been allowed to be in Goodbye. Unfortunately, the song also kind of flopped a little bit. It didn't even break into the top 20 on the Gaon charts, and charted even lower on the Melon side of things, and then swiftly dropped out of the top 100, so it wasn't a moment. However, since this marks the very final 21 release, I guess this means it's time for our very final retrospective. Let's be real for a minute. 21 did not go out with a bang. They went out with a whimper. Their death was slow and painful, and it was dragged on for years. Like, they died on a ventilator. And I fully blame YG for this. I've said this before. YG does not know how to handle a scandal. They need a better PR team, because YG's solution to scandals is essentially hide the artist away and kick them out. That's all they really know how to do with a scandal. If you think about it, unless it's an artist that YG the human is weirdly obsessed with, they're fucked. And even then, YG threw Haven on the bus in 30 seconds. YG doesn't know how to handle a scandal. They just took Bomb, shoved her in a back room, and essentially forgot she was there, and unfortunately it meant all the members of 21 suffered as a result. We're not quite done yet, though. We do have one more piece of news that we need to discuss, but before we actually get into that, we're just gonna head back to the members really quick, and we're gonna have a crash course on, like, the 5 years between 2017 and 2022. Okay, we're back, and I know earlier in the video I was like, we're not really going to talk about anything that happened between 2017 and 2022, and that is still true, but I do feel like we also just kind of need to touch base about what the members were up to, because it feels very disingenuous if I'm like, 5 years happened and nothing happened, although to be fair, that's not entirely wrong. As always though, we're going in age order, which means first off, Bomb. Bomb, in spite of the way 21's ending went down, has remained arguably the most successful member of the group in Korea itself. Following some messiness when she tried to get herself a label and flopped, she would release the single Spring, which was a collaboration with fellow former 21 member Dada, and the song did extremely well. It peaked at number 3 on the Gaon charts and charted for a good few months. Bomb would follow this up with a couple other single releases, but none of them really made any noise, so instead, I'm going to mention that she went on the very first season of Queendom, and in spite of the fact she finished last in the show and was pretty much widely considered to have not belonged there, like, she was there with a bunch of other younger groups, and Bomb was far older, far more experienced, and also a soloist. She did finish in last place, but it did remind a lot of people why they liked her, and she did see a minor boost back up in popularity. Bomb actually didn't do a ton that I feel like mentioning, though, following the end of Queendom, so we're gonna move on to the next member, Miss Dada. Dada's actually been on her acting game since 21 disbanded. She did feature in Bomb's single, like I mentioned, but that's her only real music-related thing of note. Instead, she's been acting in a bunch of shit. However, I don't care about the things she's been acting in, or really anyone's been acting in, so I have nothing to say about them. I will briefly mention, however, I forgot to mention this earlier, I'm not going back to refilm it. After 21 disbanded, Bomb left YG, but Dada and CL stayed. Dada stayed far longer. She did not leave the company until 2021. Speaking of CL, let's talk about her next. It was a bit of a mixed bag at the start. Really, the only notable thing she did while still under YG was perform at the closing ceremony of the 2018 Winter Olympics. However, since leaving YG in 2019, she has been thriving. Immediately after leaving YG Entertainment, she released an EP with all the songs YG wasn't releasing, which I love. Messy as hell, we stan, and has also since released a studio album called Alpha. Also, notably to me and me alone, CL, of all the K-pop idols who have been to the Met Gala, definitely had the best look. Like, her look that year absolutely slayed. She was absolutely eating, and the other idols who have gone have barely even snacked, so I need them to step their game up. Anyway, our final member is Miss Minzy, who has been simultaneously everywhere for a bit, and then nowhere at all. She started off very strong. She would appear in the show Honey Slam Dunk, specifically the second season, where she, along with various other singers, released the single Right, which peaked at number 2 on the charts and was a hit. She then released a solo mini album under the Music Works with its title track Ninano peaking at number 44 on the Gaon charts. However, this is where it gets a little rough for Miss Minzy. She did announce a tour, however it then got postponed, and then got cancelled, and then she released one single and then started a multi-year feud with her label. She would eventually leave the Music Works in 2020, however, she hasn't really done anything of note since then, so now that we've caught up with the 21 members, we can jump ahead to 2022 and get back to the timeline. Okay, we're gonna fast forward around 5.5 years to Coachella of 2022, when CL was part of the performing lineup, and following doing a handful of songs, the 3 other members of 21, aka all 4 of them, would appear and they performed I Am the Best, and people were feral for this shit. The girlies lost their entire minds after this performance. I'm pretty sure 21 was like trending worldwide, but I do know that various notable sources, including myself, were under the impression that this could in theory mean a potential 21 comeback. Now, nothing has happened as of yet. There have been no announcements. However, I'm choosing to be hopeful. But with that, I can officially say this has been the history of 21. And yeah, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. This video has been an experience to make just because there was so much history that I had to learn to do this. Like, I've obviously known 21's releases. I've been listening to them forever. But to learn like the intricacies of their popularity, what did well, what didn't do well, and what did well in different ways was just fascinating to me. I might do more historical groups, but like, we'll have to see. I don't know. But until then, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe if you want to or don't. I will be okay either way. You can also follow me on Twitter at s_reviews. I will link that in the description along with all of my history of, so you can check them all out if you so choose. You can also comment whatever you wish down below. You can tell me what you thought of every 21 release. You can tell me what I forgot. You can tell me what I was wrong about. You can tell me whatever you want. Comment whatever you wish. But yeah, thank you again for watching. Bye!